Okay, I'm back. But let's be completely honest. Because of how ingrained, a lot of biases and preconceived notions are in the system here in the United States and in other places, sadly, racism will never go away. There will always be, until the spirit of pride, is no longer a thing. And, people stop caring about this. Until that happens, the whole system of racism, is still gonna be a thing. It's still gonna exist. Sadly. And it's like I say this, not to be a Debbie Downer or to, cheer for it, to be like, Hitler parade. Like, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer or anything. It's more so because it's somebody that has lived in the South my whole life. You just pay attention to specific things, you notice certain things, you see certain things, and it kind of makes you realize that this isn't going anywhere. So I might as well do everything that my ancestors and my great-great-grandparents didn't get to do. I want to be, if they were here, I want them to be proud. I want them to be happy. Like even now, like I want to be the best person that not only God wants me to be, I want to be, my family and friends want me to be, but also I want to be somebody my grandmama would be proud of, somebody my granddaddy would also be proud of as well. Because truth be told, I feel like for so long, our grandparents and our parents, especially, if they've experienced racism, like they have, or just like poverty and so forth, they've essentially been clawing and basically just like on survival mode 24/7, to where they've had to sacrifice their dreams and goals and aspirations in order for us to get to a better place, because they didn't have those opportunities because of how much that the whole thing of racism and the transatlantic slave trade, just how much all of this stuff has caused us to be so behind as a people, right? Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. But I feel like the key to, rising above is to continue to, be the best we can be and go towards your dreams and goals and aspirations, and don't let Billy Bob and Sally Sue stop you, because what God has blessed, no man can curse. And you want to know how God blesses you? If you have to force it, or if you have to jump out of your comfort zone, but that comfort zone is causing you to constantly sacrifice your entire being, that's not a blessing from God. A blessing from God at times will challenge you to grow and be your best self, but at the same time, it's helping you. It's helping you financially, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, etc. Right? So I feel like that's definitely one way, because I feel like naturally, in order for racism to be gone, we have to tackle it from a systemic standpoint, from a racial standpoint, meaning everybody has to really understand where race comes from to begin with, because back in ancient times, race was never supposed to matter. It was all about this, you were with this nation or you weren't. But it was always like this nation, that nation, this nation. Once people understand that and then realize that some of the mannerisms and specific things that people have are not even racial, but it's more so an individual thing, and it is also based on the ideologies and mentalities and media that has been pumped into certain communities and so forth. You start to tackle it from a personal perspective. Now, from a spiritual standpoint, in my opinion, racism is coming from a place of pride. That's why you see so many races saying white pride, this pride, that pride, the whole nine, right? All of that can be deaded when people realize that essentially in ancient times, the only reason why this was different, some people's ancestors decided to stay near the equator, and some people's ancestors decided to stay far away from the equator. And that's eventually how we ended up getting this in the first place. So when you really break it down from a systemic, a personal, well, interpersonal in a way, and a spiritual standpoint, I feel like those, if you really want to break down and you really want to destroy racism once and for all, that's what it is. Because I feel like, you can see it from a natural and a physical standpoint, but at the same time, when you get rid of it spiritually, everything else falls into place. So that's all I'll say for this section. So y'all may or may not like me for this part. It is what it is though. So what I want to say is the choices that we make really shape and mold what things are going to be like for us later on down the line, along with our children or kin, essentially, and families as well. So like, for example, there's like a lot of problematic behaviors that I feel like we have normalized or that we have accepted in our community, like way too much, right? So this little section, it's not going to be little because it's going to be long, is pretty much diving into, like religion or like witchcraft, essentially. So you know how I brought up the curse of Canaan, right? So I'm going to be talking about that a little more, because every single kin or nation that came from Canaan, and really all of Ham's sons, they all practiced witchcraft. Every single one of them. And the main deities that the Canaanites had, was Asherah, Baal, and Moloch, right? So every form of witchcraft can literally be traced back to Canaan and Babylon, but more so Canaan. It says it in the Bible, and it pretty much like it exposes how, followers of Moloch was out here using human sacrifice and child sacrifice in order to appease these deities. It went from Canaan, it went from the Canaanites to the next lineage, and then from, this nation to another nation to another nation to another nation. And then same thing with the Egyptians. Like the Egyptians had multiple deities. The main reason why the plagues happened were so proving to Pharaoh that the very essence of what he believed in was false and it was a lie. Because every single flood had something to do with each of the deities in their beliefs or practices, essentially. It was some serious. Like, you had people building statues and so forth, and like one of the earliest forms of this was when Moses had left, right? He left. He was just like, all right, I'm finna go get the 10 Commandments. Yeah. And the next thing you know, he comes back and he asks Aaron, like, what's going on? Like, I wasn't gone for that long. So why y'all make a golden calf? Right? So it's to a point, like when it comes to witchcraft, and I'm gonna state my point off. I'm gonna state this saying, it's not me being hyper religious or mean or trying to come off in a super judgy way or like none of that, because we've all done things that we didn't have like any kind of understanding about. But the one thing I'll say is this stuff is dangerous, and I feel like it should be left alone, because I feel like if it has the ability to hurt innocent people, it's not something that should be tinkered with, like, at all whatsoever. Like, I've heard stories of people making pepper jars and putting people's pictures in it. I've heard of people trying to do love spells on people and all types of stuff. And I mean, I've even heard the whole nine, like literally have people going to people that do readings and so forth and trying to make somebody do a reading on an innocent person to find out more information on them. That is questionable within its nature. Now, to me, I feel like, in my opinion, I'm going to start this whole section off. I feel like, in my opinion, the reason why I say not to mess with this stuff is, like, for one, from a Christian standpoint, the reason why God tells people not to mess with this stuff, it isn't to sit and to try to punch you when you're down. It's more so to protect you from negative things happening to you spiritually. Because there is a lot with our regular eyes that we do not be peeping. Oh my goodness. Like, should I even bring that dream up? Yeah, I'll do it. So prime example, right? So there's this dream I have, and this was like in October 2023. So I had this dream where I was with this random person, I don't know, but they're essentially a black silhouette. And there were like little kittens that were biting at my ankles. And the next thing you know, there was a snake, a green king cobra to be exact. And it popped out of nowhere and it tried to charge at me, but I stopped it. So when it tried to charge at me again, I basically grabbed it by its mouth, then ripped his head open. But before I can literally rip his whole body apart, the dream stopped. You know what's wild about that dream? A month after I had it, there was a musical artist that on their album cover, there was a snake on it that looked exactly like the one in my dream. And you know what's even crazier? So after, talking to like one of my friends about like because we both were just talking about random stuff, and I pretty much like talked about like some incidences that I've been in before, like in the past. There was one little detail that was kind of crazy, and when we both looked it up, the exact color and look of one of the snake looked exactly similar to the one that was on the Mommy Wada card. So what other beings are associated with snakes or birds or animals, right? So I'm like, okay. So when I looked up all these deities, I'm like, okay, so they're essentially the same. One and the same, essentially, with different names. So when I looked it up again, guess who they all can be traced to? Not just in symbolism, but what they represent. You thought I was joking when I said I could trace all of this back to them? No. I didn't spend this month just doing nothing. Like I had to be careful when, looking this stuff up as well, because I feel like what a lot of people will do is they'll be curious and then it sucks them in and then boom. But it's like, for me, I had to look it up, from a place of research, from a place of understanding that, okay, I might not be able to, put some solid kapow in there compared to the other parts, but at least I'm introducing, some kind of proof in this section. This stuff is real. You can't make this up. It's to a point of where it's so bad. You have people selling people into human trafficking and then forcing them to take place into juju ceremonies. You have people in the church that are practicing hoodoo, voodoo, Ifa, Santeria, etc. And they're using the book of Psalms as a spell book, not realizing that in Isaiah, Deuteronomy, and other books, it literally says not to tinker and tonker with witchcraft. And it literally equates witchcraft to rebellion, because in its pure essence, that's exactly what witchcraft is. It's literally using supernatural means to control or alter a situation or people or so forth. Some things ain't supposed to be altered. It's not. Like, prime example, there's this movie I was watching a while back called Minutemen. I know it's Black History Month, but hear me out. So it's basically about these kids in high school. They're tinkering and tonkering and making this time machine or something. I mean, dude hacked into the NASA files for whatever reason, and they was messing with this stuff that was using time travel. They kept doing it until them doing that messed up the space-time continuum. So then they had to do all this stuff to reverse everything they did. Witchcraft is the same way. If you keep doing this stuff, it comes back to bite you in the butt. And now you're doing all this stuff to reverse everything that happened. Like in horror films, for example, like a lot of people, like even divination within itself is like dangerous, because like prime examples, like you have people in horror films, like, I don't know, their grandmama Helga died or something. Next thing you know, they're like, I miss Aunt Helga, I miss Grandma Helga. I gotta reach out to her, let her know what's good. They grab the Ouija board to talk to Helga. They think it's Helga. Whole time it's Metatron. Whole time it's Tinky and his goons. The whole time messing with them the whole movie. Now they gotta run and go to a priest and tell the priest, hey, we was messing with a Ouija board and we ended up putting a demon in the house. That is exactly how that stuff is. These deities, they're not even really real. It's literally the devil and his goons posing as these deities or whatever to literally lure you in and to give you false truths, and you spread those false truths to other people, not realizing that you're kind of messing up people's lives with this stuff, let alone messing up your own life. That's why there's been times where some people have gone to readings and they have said a whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of falsities, or you ask somebody to interpret your dream, and they're talking about, oh, I saw such and such. The person you saw in your dream was trying to kill you. And now next thing you know, that person got you avoiding somebody that, that wasn't even trying to kill you the whole time. It was based on a whole lie. Then another thing I noticed as well when it comes to like witchcraft is like there's so many people that say, oh my gosh, I feel so tired and so fatigued from doing these spells. Perhaps that's your body saying that because it's rejecting you doing it, because your body knows it's not natural. Your body automatically, rejects anything that it perceives as a threat or a huge problem. That's the reason why with like surgeries and stuff, sometimes your body rejects specific body parts and so forth. So it's the same way emotionally and so forth, right? And I feel like, in my opinion, God set it up like that, because the body can communicate with you when something is wrong. And then it gets to a point of where you have people where they try to use or gain that energy back by using outside sources, but it's just not right. And then what's even crazier is, on top of that, you have people that are lured into these spiritual spaces where that person promises environment of community and closeness and inclusivity, and the next thing you know, wow, it's a whole turn, and then that person is being outed for being a rapist, pedophile, everything under the sun. This stuff is so bad that you have generations of people, within the Black community that have been affected by witchcraft, and they don't even realize it. Like, you have whole people that are witches in their families, and out of jealousy or out of spite or just being a nasty hearted person, they try to put spells and hexes onto their own family members. Like, That stuff should really not be messed with. Like, you're gonna have to, and if you're in it, I say pray to God to get out of it. Because in a lot of ways, witchcraft really, a lot of people be talking about how, Christianity and slaves and all this other stuff. Like, baby, I ain't never felt so free. Ever since, I came back to God and I gave specific things to God. A lot of this stuff really enslaves people, and it gets to a point of where these people end up doing beck and calls for these demons. And they don't even realize it, which is the sad part. And then you have some people where they worship the nature and the environment, and they call themselves gods and goddesses. Like, I'm sorry, if you were God and you're doing all that, baby, it would have been more cooked than a rotisserie chicken. I would have been out of there. You probably would have sent me to hell on day one, because I didn't agree with you when you said the sky was purple. And a lot of people don't realize that, like, the definition of a god or goddess is essentially a lesser being. Is that what you're trying to say, that you are less than? Like, if you were a god or a goddess, if you're in poverty, why don't you get yourself out of poverty? You're starving? Pop yourself up some dinner. If you're that powerful. You're not? Awesome. We're all human beings. Okay? Just because we're regular, that doesn't mean we don't have the ability to change people's lives. We have the ability to do extraordinary things all the time. It says it in the Bible. It says it in history. It says it everywhere. There's plenty of examples of it. There's nothing wrong with being the underdog or just the person, There's nothing wrong with that. And then there's nothing wrong with giving, there's nothing wrong with liking nature, appreciating what God has made. But it's kind of crazy to, give credit to the object, but not the creator of that object. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. On top of that, you have people that will basically say, like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, and blah, blah, blah. But meanwhile, you're worshiping the very thing that the Egyptians worshipped, and everything that they worshipped can be traced back to Canaan through the Canaanites. That's why Canaan's lineage was cursed to begin with. Why go back to the thing that caused Canaan and his lineage to be cursed in the first place? You might as well just go all the way back to where Nimrod was and help him make the Tower of Babel at that point. You might as well. It's a lot of people will sit and say, oh, well, why are you talking so bad about, what your ancestors practiced? Like, you're being sucked in by the white man. And it's crazy because there's no race, and nobody cares about race in the spirit realm. You think demons discriminate when they attack people? Absolutely not. It attacks anybody that is literally trying to have a relationship with God and is trying to be successful and be their best person. They don't care about race in the spirit realm, boo-boo. You getting into heaven, it's not like they're gonna let just black people into heaven, babes. Like, that's not how this works. And just because I'm calling this out, that doesn't mean I'm not gonna call the other forms out. Because like I said, all witchcraft, regardless of what race is practicing it, all has root from Canaan. And it's all out of pocket. It's not as black and white as you think. Hey, get it black. Okay, I'm gonna stop. It's not as black and white as you think it is. Because this instance, it's not about race anymore. It's all about the reality that the more you practice this stuff, there's going to be a lot of spiritual repercussions that you probably may or may not even see coming if you keep practicing this stuff. What I mean by choices as well is we need to be careful with who we allow into these spaces, because we cannot be so focused on the goal of Black excellence that we allow dangerous people into these spaces for the sake of trying to, stick it to the man. Like that's very dangerous, because I see it so often, in some spaces where we allow problematic people, we allow rapists, we allow just problematic behavior. In a lot of Black spaces, we don't say nothing. We brush it, we sweep it under the rug all the time. And I feel like if we really want Black excellence and, healthy Black spaces, we really want it to be the bee's knees, we want it to be popping, we gotta be honest. We have to look in the mirror, and we gotta pray, and we gotta say, what issues do we have? What issues, are really tearing us up? And you have to be willing to take it head on. But a lot of people aren't willing to do that because they know that at the root of it, it's no longer a race issue. It requires them to understand that it's always gonna have to be humility over culture. Every single time. Every single time. Because there have been so many stories, there have been so many stories of people, going through abuse, going through so many different things. And yet we allow people into these spaces when it comes to talking about Black excellence and Black wealth and Black this and Black that. And it's kind of just like, at what cost? At what cost? It's like, whenever, if I tell my future children about Black excellence, I want it to be somebody, that is a good role model, that is a good person, that if they did something bad, they're willing to reflect on what they did and apologize and make it up to said people. I don't want it to be somebody that, came from the system, and instead of helping people and instead of, really trying to, be about it, essentially, they're basically opening the gates to people that are literally kind of slightly responsible for a lot of the dangerous media and ideologies and mentalities and so forth that are in the Black community to begin with. We really have to be honest about that, because there is way too many incidences of mental and emotional stagnation in our community. Way too much, to the point of where you have crazy people going on podcasts talking about how abused people or damaged goods and all types of lunacy. And it's really sad, because even in the Bible, it often says, if you offend people or if you do something to somebody that is wrong, it's your responsibility to take accountability for what you did. It's also some of the other choices that I mean. That's what I mean. Because some of the choices are personal ones that have nothing to do with race. But then you have other choices that do have something to do with race. Because I feel like, in my opinion, if we really care about Black excellence and we care about Black representation and so forth, what examples are we setting in stone if we're uplifting people that have somewhat contributed to the pain of a good portion of people within our community? What good is it by saying, oh, look at the accolades of this person, and they did, and they set these records, but they abused so many people in our community? That's what I mean. I feel like the choices that we make are very essential to how our present and our future, is shaped. Not just as a community, but also in our personal lives as well. And I feel like it's very important to be mindful of the choices that we make, the things that we choose, who we decide to be, who we decide to follow, and so forth. So, with that being said, no, I'm joking. I'm joking. But all right, y'all, this has been me talking about this kind of stuff. But if you like this video, go down, press the like button. Don't forget to subscribe, click that bell for notifications on when I post next. Oh yeah. So I'm gonna be doing this thing where it's basically called Random Talks, right? So basically what I'm gonna be doing is any questions, you ask, I will answer, which is why it's called Random Talks. You could talk about anything from Christianity, from advice you need, to video games, anime, just anything that's on your mind, whether it's politics, whatever, I'll answer it. Now, the one thing I'll tell you is, don't say nothing too crazy. Otherwise, I'm not gonna read it. You could say something that's kind of funny though. I don't mind because I like memes, and then also, no cursing. Please, no cursing. I say that because, admittedly, I'm gonna let y'all in, on something a little personal to let you know I'm human too, obviously. But no, because I say that because you have some people that whenever they say, whenever they do, talk about like their faith, or just being a Christian, people will be like, ah, Baba, you act like you're perfect. And it's just like, no, not at all. Because like the reason why I say no cursing is like, admittedly, like my whole life, a good portion of the time, I have struggled with cursing. So in an effort, to tone down on it, I have, attempted to not consume anything that even has cursing in it to begin with. That being said, I really look forward to reading y'all's questions. I'm excited. But aside from that, I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, bye guys.